My name is Koye. I spent the first 14 years of my life in Nigeria, and then I moved across Europe, Netherlands for 2 years, then America for 6. Then I was briefly in East Africa for a year and a half, and then I went back to London for my master's. And I've been back in Nigeria ever since. During this time, I studied economics and psychology. I did some development, and I've worked in marketing. So the novel is supposed to, it speaks about Nigeria from 1950 till 2010. It's supposed to convey one of the most turbulent times in Nigeria's history, because it was a time of constant change in the terms of how we thought politically, socially, and I thought it was a good evolution. It was a good way to capture the evolution of a nation as concisely as possible. It was mostly based on Les Miserables by Victor Hugo. I like the idea of being able to jump very succinctly into the way a nation has evolved itself and moved and carried things like fashion and ideals and ideas. So I guess Stillborn portrays Nigeria very aptly for the first 50 years or so of its life. I guess my fear when I wrote the novel, this was in 2010, was we had a president who had died on foreign soil, or so we were told, and this was never confirmed. So Stillborn for me, and this was during the turmoil when I wrote the book, Stillborn for me was a reminder to Nigerians of all the things that had happened since independence. I thought we had a very interesting history, but it was one that should not be ignored, especially by the youth. So I tried to make an accessible history novel for younger people to understand what has happened in their country. While I was writing the book, I listened to a lot of Fela, and I realized the issues he had written about in the 70s, 60s, 80s, they were still relevant to what I was writing so many years after. So initially that was the point, and then I realized, given his songs were so long, it was taking roughly the same amount of time to read each section. The song and each section of the book were taking about equal amounts of time to go through. So I thought it was very interesting, the coincidence, and then I made it sync throughout the whole book in the initial version. So technically, if you had listened to the playlist, that is the chapter list, you should have finished the book at exactly the same time. Yes, certainly. When we wrote the book, we envisioned most of Africa's narrative has followed a very similar trajectory. The countries were born, they tried to develop and go on their own, but across the continent we found the same issues of leadership problems, of countries being stalled by their natural resources, of just many similar issues that we find in Nigeria, the same issues we find throughout Africa. And it's a historical portrait that paints Nigeria but gives you an overview of the entire continent. I hope they see just the birth of a nation and the birth pains that countries go through. Nigeria is quite young, we're still about 60 years old, and you can see the process it's taken for us to grow and establish. We hope to do this quicker and faster. And I just hope people have an idea of, the struggles of a nation and how things evolve over time. Oh, certainly. I'm currently working on my second book. I hope to finish it shortly this year.
I no be gentleman at all. I no be gentleman at all. I no be gentleman at all. I no be gentleman at all at all.
I no be gentleman at all.
I be African man, original.
I no be gentleman at all.
I be African man, original.